Hello, chess family. It's me, National Master Jesse James, and today we're going to be taking a look at some games I got to play against the illustrious Alexander Botez. I'm very proud that I got to play a few games with her, and this game is actually back from 2016. I do end up getting my revenge a little bit later. I actually played a few days ago in 2022 over here. But let's go and see how she annihilates me in the first game here. I'm playing with the black pieces, and she has white. Let's see how she starts this game off. Knight c3, how rude. These are all these games were bullet games, so it was fun to see something a little bit crazy, right? Here we go, knight f6. I'm a very classical player. Knight c3, knight f6. This is going to be a fun game. d4, g6, knight f3, d5. Pretty much forced here, or else she'll be getting the pawn to e4 here with a full center. We don't want that. e3, bishop g7, bishop d3, castles, and pawn c5 here. Of course, this is not really the best way for white to play. White should definitely have brought the c-pawn out first. That's why this knight c3 move is so interesting. With that being said, the c5 move is pretty strong here because, well, it's going to try to attack the center here. And this is a principal move and a very good one that's going to try and break this center up. Pawn takes, actually the best move for her. Knight to d7. We'll win this pawn back at our leisure. Knight d4, knight takes. Pawn b3, and of course, do you see the move here? Let's take the center. Pawn e5, pawn e4. She finds a very nice way here to not lose a piece here. Bishop b5, and I thought I was just winning here with pawn to a6. Ugh, she's very, very crafty. Pawn to b4 here, allowing the bishop to get an escape score and also attacking my knight. I went ahead and moved it back. Bishop a4, b5, bishop b3, and now I've just helped her out. Now she's targeting my d5 pawn. Bishop b7, bishop b2, rook c8, queen to d2. The time is going down. We're both at 43. She's at 43 seconds. I'm at 46 seconds. Queen d7, rook to d1, rook f to d8. Ugh, my pawn on d5 is definitely becoming a target here. I have a little bit more space in the center, and maybe I should have gone for a kingside attack. Bishop a1, very interesting move by her. h5 here, trying to build up on the king side. That's probably where my advantage will be at. a4. Pawn takes, bishop takes, definitely not the best move for me. She definitely scared me at this point. I did not play the best move. Queen c7, I like this move, aiming at this h2 pawn. You can see that knight g4 idea is coming up pretty fast. Knight d4, knight takes, pawn takes, knight to g4, threatening the checkmate on h2. So she's got to make a weakness here, and she plays pawn to g3. Knight h6, I'm trying to reroute this knight to a better square, targeting at this d4 pawn, but she already sees this and already starts defending. Pawn c3, another very good move. And h4, I'm just hacking away at this king side. Bishop b3, pawn takes, bishop h6. I'm definitely getting a good position here, but the time is ticking, and I'm not sure if I can convert this as fast as I want to. Queen a2, pawn e3, pawn f4, best move here. Of course, if she takes here, well, I'm just going to go ahead and take back on e3 with this nice little fork right here. So f4, best move by her. g5, definitely not a good move. But here I'm definitely starting to feel the pressure of the time with only 24 seconds on the clock. She has 24 seconds. The game's about even here as far as time, but position-wise, it's still pretty crazy here, although I do have a slight advantage. But I'm losing it all with this move over here with g5. I don't know what I was thinking. King up, I like this move. She's going to try and reroute her rooks over here to the king side. I think that's a good idea. Pawn takes. King f8, I don't know, I just start running over here, and the computer actually does like this move because the idea is to go to e7 and then bring the rooks over here, and hopefully we can try and checkmate her. Rook to d3, king e7, king f3, and she does find a really nice little nook here to hide her king. Rook over, takes and check, definitely the best move for her, just because, well, this is a bullet game, and she's definitely getting me low on time. In fact, at this point, I just start going crazy because, well, I don't have enough time here. Bishop takes, queen e7, check, and now takes, check, and at this point I did flex. So she got me in the first game. All right, it's time for a little rematch. It's time for a little revenge. Let's see what happens here. This is the second game that we play, and this is played much later on. Gosh, like I said, this was played quite a few years later. I guess 5 years later. Wow, looks like things have changed here. She's definitely a little bit more famous these days, right? And yeah, here we go. We got to play our second game, and after like 5 years, and here we go. D4, knight f6. A little bit more respect from her, which I like. You know, who likes to be disrespected in their bullet games. E6, knight c3, d5. Looking like a queen's gambit here. pawn takes, knight f3, bishop e7, bishop g5. This is actually not a very good way for black to play in these lines, but it is solid enough for me. Castles, pawn e3. Her game has definitely been stepped up here from that last opening she was playing. This is definitely a lot better here, and in fact, I like her position a lot more now. Pawn h6, kicking the bishop. Bishop to f4, knight to d7. I'm trying to again prepare the c5 move over here. Bishop d3, pawn c5, pawn takes, knight takes. I'm actually very happy with my position now. Although I do got the isolated pawn, you can see I have pretty active pieces over here. And if I ever want to, I can try and snack on this guy over here. Castles, bishop g4. Like I said, you could take for the bishop pair. There's really no need to. This knight might look good on this e4 square. And actually, I get the knight over there a little bit later. h3, trying to kick my knight away. Bishop h5, g4. This is where she starts going a little too aggressive here and makes some kingside weaknesses. Bishop g6, takes. Knight to e5, pawn to g5 here, kicking that bishop. And now we finally are going to be looking to get our last rook into the game. Queen to d2, and knight to e4. Now it's finally time to get that knight to its good square. And at this point, apparently, black is just in a really good position. I'm at like negative 1.4. Knight takes, queen d4, and then knight takes on g3. And computer loves this this position, giving this a negative 4.7. With that being said, I was not able to convert this, and she was able to do a nice swindle and get a draw against me. Or maybe it wasn't a swindle. Maybe she just outplayed me toward the end. Takes right here, bishop f6, trying to put on the pin, but rook f5. Very nice move here, just putting a nice defender against this knight, and I just couldn't figure it out. Queen d6, rook to d1, rook to d8, pawn to e4. Another very good move here, and I'm already feeling so much pressure here. I think I'm about to lose this pawn over here. Computer just gives queen e7 here as the move. I'm not really too sure what this idea does. With that being said, I went ahead and went queenside, trying to grab onto some pawns. Pawn takes on d5, queen takes a2, d6, rook c2. The advantage I thought I had is now all gone. It is now +2 here in her favor. Queen d5 check. She forces off the queens. Queen takes, rook takes on b2. Pawn to d7, king h7. I'm trying to get my king over here to h7, so I don't have to worry about any kind of checks later on. With that being said, knight f7 looks like a winning move right away. In fact, computer gives rook takes f6 here, g takes, and then knight f7 as just winning a piece here. Fortunately for me, she was playing a little too fast here, and well, after this, she doesn't. She didn't do that, right? Anyways, back to the game. Rook to c2, knight to d6, and this is where I'm able to get the advantage back. Rook to c7, knight e4, and I'm able to grab onto this d7 pawn. Unfortunately, I did not grab it, and here she gets a very good move in of rook to d6, and now, well, rook c6 here, last blunder, and yeah, here she just gets a draw here. She just forces the repetition. Ugh, I was not too happy with this. Ugh. Well, with that being said, you know, I went ahead and challenged her for another game. Here we go. This is game number 3, second for the second time that we met. And the accuracy for this game is 82% for me and 72% for her. It's really impressive how we can match a very high accuracy in such little time. All right, in this game I do have the white pieces. Let's see how it goes. E4, E6, D4, C5. Here we get a Sicilian. Knight f3, C takes, knight takes, pawn to d5. I'm not sure. Maybe she really enjoys these kind of isolated pawns. I believe in a lot of the games that we played of the 5, we did get isolated pawns quite a few times. Well, if I don't take, I'm going to get a bad structure, so I will go ahead and take. Pawn takes, knight c3. I'm very happy in this position. Knight f6, bishop b5 check, bishop d7, and castles. Here, white already has a good advantage due to the development. All right, bishop to e7, bishop to g5, castles, rook e1, bishop takes, knight c6. I pretty much did lose my advantage here as white as well. This d5 pawn is well defended, and she was able to develop her pieces. I didn't really give her much trouble in this game as far as this opening went. Bishop takes, and knight takes on d5. At this point, the game is equal. If anything, I would say she's actually a little bit better here just because she has this bishop. Bishop takes on b2, rook to b1, bishop back, and pawn to c4. Pawn a6, knight c3. I had a feeling she might take here, even though that was not the best move. It seemed like she was really like in a trading mood. She just wanted to keep making trades here. I'm not sure if she's trying to win on time or she just believes I'm a bad endgame player. So she took, takes. And again, this is just like an even dead position now. She lost that little advantage that she had. Rook to d8, again looking for some more trades. I went ahead and played knight d5. I don't want trades here. I do want to grab this pawn on b7, but I want to grab it whenever I want to. Pawn b5 and takes. And then she makes a mistake here and plays knight to e7. Hopefully you see the move here. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and take here on e7 and check. And then I just want an extra piece here. Rook takes, pawn g4. Credit to her, she does not give up. She keeps playing here. She has about 33 seconds on the clock. I have 39 seconds. And I was able to go ahead and convert this into the win. Not too much to discuss here, as I have a passed pawn, so I go ahead and push it. I must say, I don't think I converted this the best way possible. I could have definitely done a better job. Here I go after the kingside pawns for some reason. But the main idea is I need to get this pawn across the board. And I think at this point, I'm just playing fast because it's, it's bullet, right? With that being said, the knight should have been rerouted over to b6 or c7 so that you can push the pawn forward. I eventually do find this after quite a few checks here, which I am embarrassed about this game as far as the conversion rate goes. Rook takes on h7 there, check. Rook back over here. Eventually she's going to be trying to threaten this kind of f3 stuff. Knight check, knight to d4. Obviously trying to cover the square, but here I finally find the idea of this. I can play knight to b5, defend the pawn, and then play rook to b8, and then push it. King over to f6, knight b5, and now I've found the winning idea. Check, and I didn't even take. I just played king g3 just because I was worried about some checks here. Although now that looking at it, right, and I can just take here. At this point, she just went ahead and resigned. All right, so I got my first win. It took 3 games, a loss, a draw, but now I got my first win against the very famous Alexander Botez. All right, I challenged her, and she wanted to play, so let's go. Game on. Typically, I don't like to play the same person over and over again, but how many chances do you get to play against a famous chess player over here? This game was a 78% accuracy, and I got up to 88% this time. Not too bad. All right, here we go. In this game, I'm playing the black pieces. So d4, knight f6, c4, g6, pawn e3, bishop g7. In this one, we're going to be playing like a Grunfeld. Knight f3 castles, knight c3, d5, pawn takes, knight takes, queen takes on d5, bishop d2. I'm actually not too sure why she played this move. This pretty much loses the advantage that she had. I think she definitely should have just developed the bishop, maybe to e2 or to even d3 here. That being said, d2 was played, and, well, let's attack this center. That's the idea of the Grunfeld. Pawn c5, bishop e2, and you can take right away here, but I went ahead and played, I played pawn takes, and you could have taken right away with the bishop, but I did not want to lose this dark square bishop, as this is a very important piece, so I just played knight c6 real quick. And she didn't even bother to defend it. She just went ahead and castled. Well, I'll go ahead and take free pawns where I can. Knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. And again, like I said, she just keeps wanting to go into endgames. It doesn't even matter if she's even better in these endgames. She just wants to go into them. Well, game on. I don't mind being up a pawn and going into an endgame. So queen takes, rook takes, bishop takes, pawn takes. Now she has an isolated pawn on an open c-file here. Bishop e6. And in this game, I'm going to be attacking on the queen side here, as that's where all the weak pawns are. Pawn to c4, rook to c8. Now I got this isolated c-pawn that I'm going to be putting lots of pressure on. Rook d4, b6. This stops the pawn from being attacked at some point with rook to b1. And I'm going to hold this pawn here because, well, this is now just a backwards pawn here. And I'll be, as you see, I'll be doubling up my rooks pretty soon to attack this c4 pawn. She does a great job on creating counterplay at this point, or at least holding her position. Rook c7, f4, rook over, rook c1. All right, well, we got to keep making progress here, so rook c5. One of the ideas is I'm going to be switching this guy over this way, or maybe even over this way, to keep putting pressure on different pawn weaknesses. All right, here we go, g4. A little too ambitious here, but hey, this is a bullet game after all. King g7, king to f2, rook a5. Here I'm trying to target these other pawns. Rook over to c2, rook over to a3. This cuts off the king from moving forward to help in the game. Bishop to d3, and this is a bullet game, so she just drops another pawn here. Snack attack, why not? King over, And here I did miss a good move, which would have been this bishop to f5 move. Bishop b6. Let's attack that c4 pawn anyways. King back to f2. Rook to c5. And here she plays the interesting move of f5. I'm not sure if this was trying to see if I'm paying attention and maybe she can grab this, or maybe she just wanted to make some kind of weaknesses so she can try to attack over here with her rook. Yeah, free pawn's a free pawn. I definitely want to keep more pieces on the board because it makes the game a little bit more crazy, and I want to try keep making threats. So pawn takes here, bishop e2, king f6. I have plenty of extra pawns here. I just got to push forward. I just got to keep making pressure against her. Rook over to h4. And I just played rook a5 here. You can go ahead and defend this pawn, but especially in bullet games, accuracy is very key, because if you wait around too long, your opponent can literally just flag you, right? So it's important that you make progress in these games. Rook takes, check, king up, rook over. I was hoping for trades here, because again, the more trades, the better, because that's going to help me get my pawn across the board. Remember, in endgames, you're either trying to win material or get a pawn across the board. Rook over to a3. Come on, let's trade, please. Rook takes. Now I'm going to be trying to push this a pawn, but also there's ideas about the pin and win over here. Rook over, check. King over to d3, and this was a blunder. Now I get to win a piece. Check, and takes. And rook goes over to h8. At this point, the game is pretty much secure. I have about 28 seconds. She has 19 seconds. And if worst case scenario, if she pushes this pawn forward, I'll just go ahead and sacrifice. This is probably the winning pawn right here. All right, e6. And yeah, she just went ahead and resigned here. All right, time for our last game. At this point, I was able to keep moving up with my accuracy, getting better and better each game. And I actually got to 94% accuracy in this game, and she had 82%. All right, let's take a look at this one. Here we go. I get the white pieces this time. E4, E6, D4, D5, another French, and I played another Monte Carlo, or also known as the exchange variation. Pawn takes, pawn to C4, knight F6, knight C3. Pawn takes, bishop takes. I'm happy with this. You gave me a free tempo. Bishop D6, knight F3. Castles here. We had a lot of isolated pawn games. Pawn to H3. This bishop G4 move always bothers me a little bit, so I just take time to go ahead and block it real quick. H6, she does that herself. Most people will tend to do the rook e8 check here. Castles here. Bishop f5. Rook to e1. Pawn to c6. Knight e5. A very nice move here. The knight's really nice and centralized here. If people do take on e5, you simply just take back with the pawn. Don't worry that you've lost your isolated pawn. That's okay. That's okay, even if you do have to trade queens here. Knight d7. Bishop f4. Takes, and pawn takes here. Knight to d5. Yeah, she just gave me a free pawn here, so I went ahead and took it. Knight takes, bishop takes. Now I have the bishop pair, and I have good chances over here on the queen side again. Knight to b6. Free money's free money. Bishop takes b7. Greed is good. She trades off queens. Like I said, she was really enjoying the queen trades in our games. Rook takes, rook over. Bishop back to f3. Knight c4. That's okay. Pawn just kicks away this knight. Knight to a3. I'm not sure where this knight is going. I don't know if she did. Rook over to c1. Rook to c8. And here I played a little move just to get like some more trades in, or at least activate my pieces. And unfortunately for her, she just missed this, and so I got to grab the exchange here. Rook over to c7. Yeah, at this point, this is really just a game of technique. Forcing off some more trades here because, again, it's just going to make this endgame a lot easier to win. Pawn a4, knight to d6. And here I did spot the tactic. Double attack right here. What do you play? A little tactic right here. We just played pawn b4. If the knight takes, well, then we can just go ahead and play rook c7 check and win it back. Bishop check over there. Let's make another trade here. I have two good pawns over here. A weakness right here that just can't be defended. Rook over to e1. King over. Rook takes. Rook over. Rook over. And now a7 is going to fall. And yeah, at this point, she just went ahead and resigned. I did offer another game, but after this, she just didn't want to play anymore, and I don't blame her. At this point, you don't want to be tilted in going into it. But like I said, I had a really good time playing against Alexandra. Hope I get to play her again, and hopefully I get to play some other very strong chess players here on chess.com. I typically do like to play on Lead Chess, but I'm actually switching over to playing on chess.com more just so I can try and play some more famous chess players, or maybe even some more streamers. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the game. We'll see you in the next video.